This week in Arsenal, Saka misses his chances, Jesus misses his chances, Martinelli misses his chances, and Zinchenko commits calamities on the ball. Let's get into it. Welcome in to This Week in Arsenal episode, I believe it's 39. And as ever, I'm Sham. You can follow me on Twitter at Shamsdale. And returning and hopefully with me as always moving forward is the one, the only Sash at LT Arsenal. Before we get into the West Ham match and some of the other things that we're going to talk about today, Sash, how are you doing, my friend? It's so lovely and wonderful to have you back and talking football with you again. How's everything going?
Yeah, it's going good. It's great to be back on this podcast. I think the listeners, I have to let everyone know what happened to me. So I was actually assaulted by some thugs who tried to rob me a few weeks ago. And I was in hospital. I got admitted to hospital, but then I've recovered. And yeah, now I'm feeling a lot better. I'm actually in India for this vacation, came back from Germany for this next few weeks, just to spend some time with my family. Um, and it was all going well until yesterday. So in India, we have to stay up until 1:45 a.m. to watch Arsenal playing, and to stay up at 1:45 a.m. to watch Arsenal play West Ham on this festive fixture, and then see us losing 2-0, staying up until 4 a.m. was horrible. And the worst part is after a result like that, you can't get sleep immediately. I'm trying to digest what the hell just happened. So I ended up sleeping, I think, only at like 5, to be honest. And yeah, slept for like 4, 5 hours. And yeah, bit grumpy today, but have so much to get off my chest. And yeah, there's no one better to actually have this discussion with than my co-host Sham. And I'm sure we're going to get into everything that happened yesterday. But Sham, how are you? Hope all is good with you. It's great to be back finally after some weeks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. First of all, again, glad to have you back, and glad that you've recovered well from what happened. It was it's still just such a crazy thing, but I'm glad that you're in one piece and you're healthy and you're safe and recovering with your family. I think best thing you could have done. So glad to have you back, and on my end, it's just been Christmas with the in-laws, and then I have my brother's wedding tomorrow, so more family, which is nice, but also I'm already exhausted. So bit of column A, bit of column B, but yeah, I'm good otherwise. Just really annoyed with the West Ham match. I was flying back from Boston yesterday, right as the game ended. So I was watching the game in the airport, and then I watched the final minutes getting onto the plane, and then I just had to sit there, until 6:37, just stewing, and thinking about just what went wrong, and kind of getting my thoughts together on this whole thing. So yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of letting loose with you, and kind of just there are some things that need to be said, and I think we're going to say them on this pod.
Yep, yep. I actually come in with a bit of an anger into the podcast today, as you can see by my display name, not a Zinchenko fan. And I think that's the most logical place to start, which is the goal we conceded yesterday. I think first of all, yeah, we let Emerson get the cross too easily. I know there's now a lot of discussion whether the ball went out, and honestly, yes, after what happened yesterday, like I don't want to get into this VAR discussion because I think we had things in our control which we should have done better, which we didn't do. So I'm not going to even discuss that. But we let Emerson play the ball in. And Sham, I just want to try to make sense of what the hell Zinchenko was doing there, and the number of goals he's actually cost us recently. Like even against Liverpool, the way he let Salah cut inside, it's the number of mistakes he's made like this season. And we've been saying it, we've been saying it for weeks that no, Zinchenko defensively suspect. You should save him only against the worst of teams like Sheffield, teams like this, who like don't have any sort of threat going forward and are just going to shut shop. Zinchenko can be useful against, but playing him every single week is at this point proving to be suicidal. I'm not saying Kivior is better or worse. But again, it's another match Zinchenko has cost us in. But what did you make of that goal? And who do you think the blame lies? Is it just collective bad defending, or is it Zinchenko? Because some people will say, oh, okay, it's a cross. Sometimes this can happen. But I think when it happens every single week and it's the same player doing it, I think there's something more to it. How do you see this situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the blame lies on Zinchenko, and I just don't understand why he was there, right, when Gabriel was trying to clear the ball. You're not supposed to be like right behind the guy, right in his face. I don't know. It's just the position is so awkward, and even against Liverpool, I don't. I'm disappointed with how he defended against Salah. I don't think it was a massive mistake, but he did some things, even the Liverpool game. Besides that,
Oh my God, yeah.
that were ridiculous,
Yeah.
right? He had some bad giveaways on the left, and then he just cleaned out Odegaard on the edge of Liverpool's box for no
Yeah.
reason to start off that 5v1 against. I was losing it. I was screaming at the TV, Sash, when like Odegaard basically Zinchenko slide tackled Odegaard, and then the ball fell, and it's just Salah and Trent and just three Liverpool guys charging right at Rice. Saliba is booking it to try to get there.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know how he got out of that one.
Yeah.
Without conceding, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
And yeah, just he's not Zinchenko's not a defender, and I understand that that's kind of always been the case, right? And he's always been kind of a guy that we just shoe in at left back and have them tuck in and kind of play more as a pivot. But I just think we're hitting the point where defensively he's okay, but on the ball he just makes too many mistakes
Yep.
in our
Yep.
own third.
Well said.
and
Yeah.
and and that's the real concern, right? He just doesn't. I think he takes too many risks. He takes
Hmm.
the kind of risks in our third that you should be taking in the middle and final thirds, basically. And yeah, he just keeps on getting himself into really awkward situations. He's making a lot of errors that lead to goal. We've conceded more goals than we've been expected to, right?
Hmm.
We have the lowest xG against in the entire league. We've been defending better than anybody, but we've been committing these ridiculous errors to hand the ball away. And Zinchenko's a big part of that. And now we've conceded more goals than Liverpool have, right? So there goes that argument.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm really fed up with him at this point. Either play him as an 8 or don't play him at this
Yep.
point for me. I
Yep.
just I think he's too much of a liability in that back line.
Yeah. I think you were very kind when you said that Zinchenko's okay defensively. I think, I mean, I get where you're coming from. I think for a guy his height, maybe he wins quite a few headers, to be fair to him. Um, but a guy who's making a mistake every other game, it's going to cost you. And I've said this many times. At Manchester City, Zinchenko never played more than 15 games in the Premier League, started more than 15 games in the Premier League. He's never done that ever at City. He's been there for 5 seasons at City. He's never started more than 15 league games. Why is it that at Arsenal people are saying he should be playing every single match? I don't get it personally. I think Zinchenko is a player you want to use in against certain teams in certain game states. If you're chasing a game, we're 1-0 down, it's 75 minutes. We want more control coming from that left back spot. You bring on Zinchenko and he can offer you something. I'm not even saying that he's a bad footballer. I'm just saying use him properly, use him at the right times. Although I do think that beyond a point as well, it's a pointless debate to have because probably if Tomiyasu or Timber are fit, they play over him at this moment. So
Yeah.
it's the fact that both of them are injured. We have no other choice but to field in Zinchenko. Um, and of course, there's a lot of clamor for Kivior. I'm not sure if he is the solution in that position, to be honest, because even he struggled with defending out wide. I think it was in the Champions League game that he played against PSV. He struggled quite a bit. So I think, yeah, we have Timber and Tomiyasu. And I think it's just such a shame that both of them are injured. especially at Anfield. I thought we really missed the most solid player on that side. And Zinchenko, as you mentioned, is not costing us just defensively. It's also with how he's using the ball, and he
Yeah.
seems to be extremely emotional in how he plays. Like, he lacks a bit of composure. I also see this with Gabriel Jesus, who we'll come on to later on. But sometimes when the going gets tough, that's when you want your leader to calm things down, to just slow things down a bit and play with that composure. And Zinchenko lacks that. And even yesterday, there was a really cheap giveaway he did, which could have cost us. On another day, it could have. This time, it didn't. And this is a team we see recently, even in the game. I think it was against Wolves. Yeah, it was against Wolves where he gives the ball away on the edge of the box. A really comfortable 2-0 game becomes 2-1, and
Yeah.
Arsenal end up having to defend for their lives to see out the game. So, I mean, again, this is something that can cost us. It didn't this time, but I think it's becoming more and more apparent just how much of a liability Zinchenko is at the back. And I think we need to now come up with a solution, Sham. Like, it's getting to a point now where he's costing us a goal every other game.
Yeah. And that's 3 games, by the way, in which Zinchenko had a massive error that could have or did lead to a goal, right? Wolves, Liverpool, and West Ham, right?
Yeah.
Those are big errors, and goals change games. I think if Zinchenko did not make that mistake yesterday, we win the game. And we don't
Yeah.
have to sit here
Yeah.
dealing with the media firestorm and people aren't deleting their Twitter accounts for the day because they don't want to deal with, rival fans. Um, with Zinchenko giving the ball away the way that he did and making it 1-0 for West Ham, that gave them all the impetus in the world just to sit back, defend for their lives. And Moyes is really good at that. Moyes is excellent at coaching low block defenses.
Yeah.
As soon as we went 1-0 down, um, there was a graphic that popped up on NBC that said we had a 3% chance of winning because West Ham went 1-0 up, right?
Wow.
And it's really annoying because we are the game's hard enough, right? West Ham were 7th when they came to the Emirates. There was a lot of pressure already on us to win the match and get back into first place. And so to against the run of play, hand them a goal and make that mountain even higher to climb, all right, and change the game state so that West Ham aren't really trying to play us anymore, right? It's just it's not worth it. And yeah, I do understand that Jorginho in warm-ups yesterday apparently was about to start and he tweaked something or like felt something and decided and they benched him for the game.
Mhm.
But it's just unfortunate because I think the lineup I wanted to see yesterday was Raya, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Kivior, and then Jorginho, Odegaard, Rice, Saka,
Mhm.
Jesus, Martinelli. I think
Mhm.
I think that would have worked really well.
Yeah.
And yeah, we just didn't get lucky. And um, yeah, it is kind of a moot point at a certain point because Zinchenko doesn't play as soon as Tomiyasu or Timber's back. Um, and yeah, it's frustrating, but I think we're kind of hitting a point where Zinchenko will either have to change either he will have to be moved around in order to still be useful, or I think we're going to hit the point where he's kind of obsolete.
Yep. Yeah, no, well said. Well said. Yeah, you mentioned as well about West Ham's structure, how good it was. And I think, yeah, you have to sometimes give credit to the opposition for their structure. But Arsenal still had 30 shots yesterday.
Yeah.
And this is a team that's been emerging recently. In fact, we have a question as well from one of the listeners. He says, it's at AJ Cooper 95 on Twitter. He says, we're creating chances, but our forward line is letting us down. So my question is, who do we get? We need a 9, but do we also need a left wing? Martinelli has been off form for a while. So let's firstly break this down. We're creating chances, but our forward line is letting us down. I think that's spot on because in recent matches, you can look at the Villa match, you can look at the Newcastle game, you can look at yesterday. These are 3 games we have dropped points in. We have lost these 3 matches. And in all of these 3 matches, we have had enough chances to actually score. But I think we have like 0 goals from like almost 5 XG in these matches. What do you think this is down to, Sham? Is it simply a case of players not doing what they have to do, or is the chances they're getting big enough? Because, like, I know last season you could say, like, yeah, first 19 games, 50 points, maybe we overachieved a bit. But I don't know, some of these players who were so sharp in front of goal and in the box just last season, they seem to have lost their mojo a bit. Is it just a case of bad form, or is there a more systemic issue which is preventing them? How do you see this? Like, I'm actually flabbergasted about how many chances we missed yesterday. And of course, we do have some characters like Gabriel Jesus who we will get onto after this. But in general, our efficiency has been poor, and I'm finding it a bit hard to actually pinpoint why. Do you see any pattern or some reason why this is the case?
I think it's a perfect storm of factors, right? Because I think first of all, just the way that we're playing, I think last season we did a really good job of getting Saka and Martinelli closer to goal.
Mm-hmm.
And this season, I think Saka is about the same, maybe a little bit further out. Martinelli feels like he's just on the touchline all the time, and he's not getting to the byline as much and doing those cutbacks. His decision making has fallen off of a cliff, which doesn't help matters. But I just don't think we're getting. I don't think we're creating big chances in the center of the penalty box like you want. Right? Last season we were cut back central. It was just Saka and Martinelli going to the byline and then cutting it back to Jesus or to Odegaard or to Xhaka, right?
Yeah.
This season, it feels like we're trying to either get Saka in like kind of like this little half space inside the penalty area for him to try shots with his right foot. It feels like we're just giving the ball to Martinelli and telling him to beat three guys and get into the box.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the time we're just spamming crosses in for what reason I don't know. Is Jesus going to win a header over Ogbonna or over Soucek? Right? It doesn't make sense a lot of the way that we play. And obviously you have to take into account yesterday that Havertz wasn't available, but I feel like we're creating a bunch of like semi decent chances, but like you really need to finish well to put them away. And B, I just think all of our players are kind of just in bad finishing form right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's almost as if, like, when one doesn't finish, it's just spreading across everyone.
Yeah.
And I think also psychologically, the players seem to be playing a bit with the handbrake off, or handbrake on, as Wenger would say. Like, they're not expressing themselves in the way that they normally do. And as AJ mentioned over here, he did mention that Martinelli has been off form for a while. I'm actually trying to figure out why that is the case. Like, I think personally, it's the system. I think he needs a playmaker next to him. I also think that he's receiving high and wide, and as you mentioned, having to dribble past like 2-3 players. I know. Still, having said this, he could do better in some of the chances he's had. But I think him as well. I think his confidence is a bit down in recent matches, and I think it all stems down to the personal playing around. Because look, you don't score 15 open play goals in the league and become like average overnight. That does not happen. There's obviously something more to it, and I think as fans we should back Martinelli, especially considering how good he's been. This is the first time I think he's had like a real drop in form to the level he has in the last few games. But I think he will come good. I think it's up to us to just continue to back him. And also, I think we need to sign that playmaker profile. And that would, I think, bring the best out of him. I also think that the rotation between Gabriel Jesus and Martinelli has reduced a lot since last
Mm-hmm.
season. I'm not sure why that's the case, because last season they were rotating. Martinelli had so much of freedom to come inside and play. I think personally, Kai Havertz and Trossard, they sort of come in the way of this, and it's not help matters. And I think just having Xhaka there, he was the perfect bridge player. He could play make, he could also get into the box, he could defend in transition. And I think not replacing him has affected Martinelli. But Sham, how do you see the situation, and how do we get the best out of Martinelli? Assuming we don't sign that central midfielder, what do you think we should do to get the best out of him?
Well, I just think that's, on that point about kind of the rotations between Jesus and how Havertz and Trossard factor it. Isn't it weird though that that's been the case? Right, because theoretically, right, Havertz and Trossard are both guys who, they can play that left eight position, they can play out wide, they can play
Mm-hmm.
centrally, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of, it stands to reason that they can rotate with Martinelli and Jesus. Jesus can drop into that left half space and pick
Yeah.
up the ball there, and Havertz or Trossard could go into the center forward position, or Martinelli could drift centrally, and then Havertz and Martinelli or Jesus could pick up that spot, or Havertz or Trossard could pick up that. It feels like it should be more fluid
Yeah.
than it is.
You're right. You're right. I think Havertz does overlap sometimes to Martinelli, and we've seen it. But I think Trossard somehow being a right footer there, I'm not sure if the balance there is perfect. I just think Xhaka, like he was left footed to begin with, and
Yeah,
that would be sometimes he would drop deeper and just allow Jesus and Martinelli to rotate. And I think Xhaka is essentially a central midfielder. He's played as a six in his career, and I think he offered that balance in that position, and his playmaking qualities was sensational. So he could pick a pass. I think with Trossard and Havertz, there's less of a threat. Teams are almost happy to allow them to like receive in those positions because I feel some of their passes are really robotic compared to Xhaka, who was very progressive with how he utilized the ball. And I think this
yeah,
has had also a trickle down effect on the other side, the way Odegaard's playing. Now, without that playmaker in Xhaka who used to drop deep, I think Odegaard's showing a lot of initiative to drop deeper, receive the ball, and build up, which is great. But sometimes you're missing that player in the final third to be in the box like he was last season. So I think it's a set of interconnected issues
yeah.
that's affecting the team at the moment.
Yeah, and I think Jacques is a really good point there because that left-footedness, right? It makes him it makes the whole thing a little harder to defend against, right? Because all four of these guys that we're talking about right now, Jesus and Martinelli and Havertz and Trossard, they're all right-footed, if I remember
Hmm.
correctly. I'm pretty sure they all are.
Yeah.
So that means that they all are going to have a bit of a tendency to try to cut inside, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
all of them, you're just going to expect them to go out, go inside. Maybe Jesus and Martinelli sometimes try to get to the byline.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think that's a really good point because Xhaka was really comfortable in those situations where he couldn't cut inside, right? He would
Yeah.
just whip in across. He would get to the byline and and try to square it for someone. So I think that is a really good point. Yeah, it's just it's disappointing. I think our attacking formations generally have been very static, right? I feel like there's been a return to that little horseshoe of death that we're doing or that we were doing, back in the early Arteta days.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting, and it's just I feel like we've gotten very predictable, especially yesterday against West Ham. It felt like we would just blaze through the first two thirds, get into West Ham's third, and then we all knew it was going to happen, right? Either
Odegaard to
you'd have
Saka, the Ben White. It's just the same triangle, you know. There's no variation in how we are
yeah,
playing.
or, if that didn't work, just kind of circle it back across to Martinelli and then have Martinelli try to beat three guys and, same old, right? Um, I do want to say I was really disappointed with Trossard yesterday
Yeah.
as well. And I think generally this season I'm getting a little bit concerned with how much we can get out of him,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Because we're talking about a guy who is going to be 30 by the start of next season. And, I've seen this point made on Twitter and I tend to agree, right? He's solid at center forward. He's like a diet Jesus at center forward, right? And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's not.
Hmm.
Um, at left wing, I'm not really convinced there because he doesn't have the width that you want. He doesn't have the pace. He's he's really good at ball retention in tight
Yeah.
spaces,
Yeah.
right? And I do think he has a bit of a bit of creativity to him, but you know he's not Martinelli, and I feel like the way that we're set up, you need like a field stretcher on
Hmm.
that left side, and that's not Trussard. And then left eight, I don't think that works against most teams of the Premier League. I think your left eight has to be somewhat physical, right? That's what that's why Xhaka is really successful there for us. That's why I think Havertz has started to put it together. Trossard just feels like he gets bullied out of the game at
Yeah,
left eight, right?
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't know what we're going to do with him because it feels like we need an alternative to Martinelli, and he's not it. It feels like we need an alternative to Havertz, and he's not it. It feels like we need an alternative to Jesus, and he's not it
Yeah,
either. So I'm
yeah.
interested to see whether this is just a dip in form for Trossard, or whether he's starting to go off the age cliff a little bit, or whether what happened in January was a bit of what happened last season, right, where he came in January, had like 11 assists, was a bit of a fluke or not. So yeah,
Mhm.
I'm a little concerned there as well.
Yeah, no, you mentioned Gabriel Jesus, and let's get on to him now. Um, Look, last season, let's be real. I think Gabriel Jesus changed a lot how we play. I think he was fantastic. I think he was a level raiser at the time. I think he played a big role in taking Arsenal from a team that finished in the top six, fifth, and sixth to a team that cemented a Champions League place and also challenged for a league. Although challenged obviously fell off in April, but still he played, I thought, a crucial role in elevating the club. But as the weeks have gone on, I think it's becoming more and more apparent why Man City actually sold him. Um, and look, you have to understand, even in the times Aguero was not available, Pep did not always start Gabriel Jesus. There were games he would play a false nine. And I always wondered why, because I thought, no, Gabriel Jesus is a good player. But Man City fans did tell us that no, the reason why they were happy to move on from him was because he misses a lot of chances. And initially last season, even when he went on that drought, we were laughing it off because we were winning at the time. We were like, it's a very cute thing that Gabriel Jesus, he plays so well and doesn't score. It didn't matter much. But now we need his goals, because the wide areas are not, as effective as they were last season. I think teams are really man marking those sides and heavily putting their best physical players on that side to double up on Saka and Martinelli. But I think the benefit in all of this is that the space for the centre forward, and Gabriel Jesus yesterday has huge chances to score. He doesn't take them, he snaps at the chances. And the same thing happened last season as well, home to Southampton in a crunch match that Arsenal needed to win in the title run in, where he again started snapping at shots the moment things went wrong. In fact, I saw yesterday as well on Twitter that people were discussing that almost all his goals come when Arsenal, when the score is like nil-nil, he's the guy who usually scores the first goal. But then once we're trailing in a game, he is not effective. He starts snapping at shots and lacks a certain composure. So Sham, I want to ask you this question. Has the time come now to move on from Gabriel Jesus? Obviously, there's huge speculation about Osimhen. I don't believe that we're going to get anyone in before the season gets over, but certainly for the summer and next season, it looks to me for sure that Gabriel Jesus, I don't think he's going to be our starting center forward next season. In fact, I think he should probably just play out wide,
Yeah.
and be one of like the wingers for like wide depth. I think we sort of discussed it yesterday on WhatsApp, if I'm not mistaken, where you did mention that you see him more as a winger. But how do you see this situation, Sham? Because it's now getting to a point where I think he has what, 3 goals so far in like 12 or 13 appearances. Like that's nowhere near good enough for a striker for a team that wants to challenge for the league seriously. And he's even been outscored by Eddie, by the way. So why do
Yeah.
you sit on this whole Gabriel Jesus, um, like his position in the team? Where do you see it? How do you see this progressing?
Yeah. So in 14 Premier League appearances, Jesus has 3 goals and 1 assist. Right. Yeah. It's not good enough. And so with Jesus is probably the player in the front line I have the most concern about right now because with excuse me, with Martinelli and Saka, I think it's I don't think we're playing to their strengths. I think they're suffering a bit of a dip in form. For
Yep.
Martinelli, I think there's some loss of confidence. Um, I also think that we are going to see some natural positive regression in terms of our finishing, in terms of us actually capitalizing on the XG that we generate. But
Hmm.
with Jesus, he historically has been someone who underperforms his XG, right? And he did that with City,
Yep.
and he's doing that with us. And it just, how do I put this? It's always felt like Jesus has just kind of been more of a facilitator, more of a dynamic chance creator than he has been an actual goal scorer, right? And I think last season that worked because he brought Odegaard and Martinelli and Saka and even at times Xhaka into the game, right? He he himself wasn't the goal scorer. He was allowing the people around him to put the ball in the back of the net. But the way that we're playing right now, right, where we're keeping our players out wide, we're not having guys get into the box really, except for Havertz and Jesus. Odegaard's kind of staying outside in the right half space. It feels more set up for your typical number nine, right? A guy who you just need to give him half a chance and he'll put the ball in the back of the net. It feels set up for it.
Yeah.
It almost feels like a test run for if we go out and sign like an Osimhen or a Sesko or a Jimenez, right?
Dusan Vlahovic, the goat striker.
Or Vlahovic too, yeah. And it's really annoying because Jesus is not that guy. And again, we have him competing with 6'3", 6'4" center backs for headers when we
Yeah.
run out of ideas. Yeah, he's not a prolific goal scorer. And so, I think with the way that we're playing, with the way that, you've seen City shift to Holland, with the way that Liverpool has invested heavily in some tall attackers like Nunez and Gakpo, um, and even I guess the non-competitors, but still bigger clubs that we're probably gonna have to deal with in the future, right? Newcastle have Isak, and
Mhm.
and Spurs have Kulusevski. They got Brennan Johnson. They've been linked with Ivan Toney, right? Everybody is going for a big man striker, including Chelsea. Chelsea also are linked with every striker that we're linked with.
Mhm.
So I think there's this shift towards using a more classic, imposing ball, kind of dominant number nine. And I think we're starting to play in a way that facilitates that, but it's not working for Jesus. So, with all that in mind, Jesus just strikes me more as a guy who's going to be effective from coming out wide. Or, I've even heard talk about him as a left eight, which,
Yeah, it's interesting.
I think it's interesting. And I think he'd be more effective there because at the end of the day, Jesus' strengths, right, are his ball control, his dynamism, and his running power, right? The guy's going to pick up the ball and run at defenders and make them make decisions. And I just think that the way that we're playing doesn't really play to those strengths, right? He's just sitting in the box. We're trying to give him the ball, but he's trying to hold off a guy almost twice his size to get the ball and lay it off to someone. Um, he's done an admirable job of it, but it's just I don't think that's his game long
Mhm.
term. So
Yeah.
it just kind of feels like we're reaching an impasse with Jesus, and he can't really have any complaints if in the summer we go get an Osimhen or we go get any other like a Ferguson or a Vlahovic or someone, right? I don't think that's something he can really have complaints about at this point in time.
Yep. Yeah. Perfect. I think you absolutely smashed the nail on the head there. You mentioned about his XG. I want to speak about this because I just went on Understat to just look at his XG in the past seasons. Actually, the history his entire history basically since he joined the league.
Hmm.
So 2016-17, his first season, 7.2 xg, 7 goals. Okay, not bad. Second season, 15.3 xg, 13 goals. Underperformance there. 2018-19, an xg of 12.6, but only scored 7 goals. An underperformance of more than 5. And 2019-20, he accumulated an XG of 21, but managed only 14 league goals. In 2020-2021, an XG of 9.6 and scored 9 goals.
Okay.
2021-22, an XG of 10, scored 8 goals. Last season with Arsenal, amassed an XG of 16.17, only scored 11 goals. And this season, XG of 5.02, scored 3 goals. What does this tell you? I think he's a player that for the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 seasons, he's underperformed his XG. Some seasons by a little bit, some seasons by a lot. And I think this is more than enough a sample size for anyone to just look at him and say he's not what we need in terms of efficiency. And Arteta can speak all he wants about being efficient in the boxes. But Mikel, if you want to be efficient in the boxes, it's high time you start signing some players who are actually efficient in the boxes. I think that starts in January and also goes into the summer. We need to sign like Victor Osimhen. I know he misses chances, but he creates a lot of chances for himself. I'm looking at his numbers as well now. This season, an XG of 7, scored 7 goals. Last season, an XG of like 26.6, he scored 26 goals. The season before that, an XG of 12.6, scored 14 goals. And the season before that, his first season with Napoli, like an XG of 10, scored 10 goals. Now, this is much better. At least he is meeting his XG at the moment. And he's still a young player, so he could always even get better. So I think it's a really good sign for someone like Osimhen. And you can also look at the other guys like Vlahovic, you can look at a Sesko, all these guys, they at least are close to their XG or they outperform it. So I think it's very clear the direction we have to take. We have to be more efficient than this. I agree that we're not efficient. And of course, you can say Saka and Martinelli as well. But Saka and Martinelli have shown before the season for quite a long time that they are quite efficient at doing what they do. And it's the center forward that has to change. And as you beautifully put, the way we play now doesn't, we don't really need a center forward to come drop deep and join the midfield. We already have two dual tens. We might as well have a player who's in the box and takes his chances. I'm not saying a fox in the box. Like it would be good to have a striker with some ability. So someone like Osimhen has a lot of ability even outside the box. If there's ever a situation where he has to drop a little deep and link, he will do it. But it should
Yeah.
not be to the extent that Gabriel Jesus is doing right now. And yesterday as well, man, countless situations. I was like, okay, we're in a good position, but there's no one in the box because our striker is in midfield, So
Yeah.
this,
And
I think, is a huge problem.
yeah, there's no need to there's no need for it, right? Because the way that we play,
Yeah.
you have, Gabriel and Saliba kind of sitting in front of the goalkeeper, and then you have the left back kind of tucking in next to Rice, and then
Hmm.
you have White making his way up. I don't think he like joins the front line necessarily, but he kind of sits up like around Saka, and then you have Odegaard and Havertz, right, kind of level with him, and then you have Martinelli and Jesus and Saka kind of making up that front line. So there's no need, right? You have Rice, who's able to carry the ball really well, and you have Havertz and Odegaard, who are very close to the goal now, right? And
Yeah.
then you have Gabriel and Saliba kind of, making sure that no one gets in through the back door. So there's no need for a guy to drop in now. The team is structured so that you have a couple passers, you have a couple guys who can carry the ball into the box, and you just need someone to be the tip of the spear now. I think if you play that way and have a guy who functions as a false nine, right? It's just too many cooks in the kitchen around that zone 14 area at that
Yeah.
point. So, and clearly, we are playing like that. Jesus does drop deep every once in a while, but we're also again spamming crosses into the box and basically trying to find Jesus. And
Oh,
it's just yeah,
that
it's
header he
like
missed yesterday. Oh my God.
yeah, and that's kind of that's the elephant in the room, right? Jesus, we've seen him miss. People call him BCM Zeus for a reason, right? And it's because the guy misses big chances.
Yeah.
And we saw it last season. We saw it today, or sorry,
Mhm.
yesterday, right, where he missed that header, and Saka, missed almost a point blank opportunity, and Trossard had a bad miss, and I think Martinelli had a bad miss as well. Um, you know I think a lot of that again is down to variance, but also I feel like Arsenal players are instructed to just shoot on target and not really aim for like a
Yeah.
corner or a side of the goal. I feel like
Hmm.
I've seen the ball fall a lot, kind of like in a scramble in the middle of the box. I think Smith Rowe did this either yesterday or the last time he played, and Smith Rowe just swings at it and hits it straight at the goalkeeper.
Ah,
Guys, you
yes,
gotta
yesterday. Yeah.
yeah, you gotta pick a side. You gotta aim one direction or the other. If you just I feel like they've been
I
told to
think the
play
joystick
again.
stopped working.
Yeah,
Sometimes you have to give direction when you shoot. Sometimes you're really excited when you're 1v1 and you forget to give direction and shoot and press O. So I think that's what happened yesterday.
and like you can't expect Onana to be the guy you're up against every week in goal. So if you're just
Yeah.
shooting on the goalkeeper and expecting him to make a mistake and let the ball into the net, it's the Premier League. The very few keepers are going to let you do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there probably has to be kind of a rethink in terms of our attacking strategy for the time being, and we have to hope that the variance kind of comes back to being in our favor over the next few weeks. But I guess I'll ask you this: do you think we need to do anything like right now in the January window? Do you think like it's that big of a problem that we have to address it immediately?
Well, it would be good if we did, and I think this is something that AJ asked as well. Like, who do we get? Do we need a nine? But we also need a left wing. So I think it's quite the dilemma, to be honest, Sham. Um, actually looking at it, I would look to sign a center forward. It need not be the marquee target in the summer. I think you beautifully mentioned that Jesus should be a winger, and I think this is what we should look to do going into the summer. Play Jesus out wide, so you have Saka, Martinelli, Jesus, and Nelson. But what I would do is I would sign someone like a Vlahovic in January, someone who's more attainable and not going to be ultra expensive. You still pay 50, 60 million for him. I think that's okay. And then in the summer, you go and get that marquee center forward that you want. It could be Victor Osimhen or anyone else, Evan Ferguson. It could be one of these guys. I think, if we will end up spending, we have to spend like something over 150 million anyway on our attack, because that's the one area we've not spent at all under Mikel so far. We've only bought in Gabriel Jesus. You have Trossard, who was bought for like 20 odd million. So it's not at all a lot compared to the other positions. So it's quite clear where we have to get better. And I think it's in the summer we go for Osimhen. So what I would like is for us to have Osimhen, Vlahovic, Martinelli, Nelson, Saka, Gabriel Jesus, and Havertz. I think that's incredible depth. You have four players who can play at center forward, and I think this is what you need to compete for the title. Like I saw yesterday, someone mentioned that our substitutes were Eddie, Nelson, and Smith Rowe. Does that really look like a bench that is going to win you a title? Would they be in Manchester City's bench? Maybe Smith Rowe potentially, but are there players that would be in City's bench? And I love Reece Nelson, by the way. I love the guy. But
Yeah.
we're competing for the Premier League title. We don't want just top four. So I think we have to rethink like the standard that is actually required. Like even Trossard, as you mentioned, like I'm finding it hard to actually find a role for him in the team next season. Like honestly, like I don't know why he plays. And
Yeah.
this is for me like a huge dilemma, but I would look to sign a couple of center forwards. How do you look at it? Would you sign a winger? How's the market looking like? How do you see it?
It it depends because like I think um I think it's a problem that you can actually fix in a few ways. I guess my question to you is: do you think we could get Vlahovic for because you there's reports floating around that we have FFP concerns, right? And there's not much money to spend anyway
Mhm.
in the January window. So do you think we could get Vlahovic or someone of that quality, for
Yeah, it
yeah,
looks very unlikely, to be honest. Like I don't see it happening. But like if we could do it, I would do it, honestly.
yeah,
Like it's what is needed in my opinion at the moment. Like just need that bit of ruthlessness in the box, a guy who with with a physical frame, because we're playing a lot of balls into the box, and I'm like every time a ball is played, what if we had a guy with some presence and some efficiency that. And Man City, they they signed Erling Haaland to replace Gabriel Jesus. They signed Nathan Ake to replace Zinchenko. This is a game of efficiency, Efficient players win. Players that defend can do their job. Players in attack who can take their chances. That's what the game is about. And at the moment, we lack players who can do that. And I think, starting to address that in this January by signing a really efficient center forward would be a good start. But yeah, I don't see this happening. AFC Camden on Twitter seemed to suggest that maybe we go for a center forward, but it still remains to be seen who that player is. But yeah, if we could get someone for 50, 60 million, like Ivan Tony or Vlahovic, I would definitely look to go for it, Sham. How about you?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think just generally speaking about what we should do in January, right? I do think I think we're hitting a point where you kind of have to gamble, right? Because we can't address. I think we have a defense problem, and I think we have a forward problem. The defense
Mhm.
problem, you can gamble, right? And you can wait for Tomiyasu to come back, and you can wait
Is
for
the
Timber to
defense
come back.
okay? I mean, but don't you agree that the defense problem is just one player, whereas the attack problem seems to be like the whole unit as a whole?
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I mean, basically, the main defensive worry is that we are very thin at
Mm,
fullback, right? We're down to White and Zinchenko, and if Zinchenko goes down, then we kind of have to play Kivior there, right?
mhm.
Which is fine. I think we've all kind of started underrating Kivior a little
Yeah.
bit. You know, I'm not freaked out about him just because Bakayoko had a good game against him. But especially at right back, if White gets injured, and I think White is playing through something, right? But if White is injured to the point where he can't feature, he can't be on the pitch, it's Cedric who has to play after him,
Oh
right?
my
And
God.
you know, we're talking 31-year-old Cedric has to play in a title race. So um again, you know, I don't think we have much wiggle room financially. I do think we're going to try and make one signing happen, maybe a second on loan, but I think we're kind of at a point where you either have to gamble and hope that Tomiyasu comes back soon or Timber comes back ahead of schedule, which I don't think is going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, gamble that that's going to happen and sign a center forward, right? Like a Tony, like a Solanke, you know, like a Vlahovic, or you go sign the defensive player, and then
Mm-hmm.
hope that Jesus and Martinelli and Saka and really no one else behind them kind of figures it out.
Yeah.
And I guess the way I lean currently is to go for the center forward, right? And then
Mhm.
hope that we can loan in someone on defense
Yeah.
because, and I hope this for multiple reasons. One, um, again, like I said, we have players who are going to come back in the defensive positions. You know, you have White, you have Zinchenko, you have Timber, you have Tomiyasu, and you have Party coming back and also play that right back role.
Yeah.
Obviously, Party and Tomiyasu are probably going to be gone for most of next month. Fingers crossed, Japan and Ghana go out early in their respective tournaments. No offense, guys. Um, but yeah, you know, you already have players there in the long term. I think Party gets replaced in the summer, but whatever, right? He's not like a long term right back option anyway. So to go spend more resources on a guy who's going to come into a crowded room, unless they're a right center back, you know, it's not the best allocation of resources. Whereas at center forward, um, we're all expecting a big signing in the summer, right? We're all hoping for Osimhen. Is Nketiah really going to be here after next summer? I don't think so. Even though there are reports coming out from Sammy Mokbel saying that Crystal Palace are interested in Nketiah, but we don't want to sell him, which I think if that's true is ridiculous at this point in time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Nketiah, like we've said a million times, Nketiah is a good player, not a fit for this system. He's not going to win us a Premier League or a Champions League, but
Yeah.
so why not go sign a guy like I like Solanke a lot, right? Or like, you know, Vlahovic as well. Why not go sign a guy there who's at least going to compete with Jesus, offer a different profile, offer a different solution, and then in the summer, you know, you go get that big striker signing, you move Jesus kind of off to one of the wings.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way, you know, you're not just playing Saka and Martinelli 50 times a season for 90 minutes. Um, and I there's there's just this nagging feeling in the back of my head that this is who we are attack wise right now, right? And we have a half season sample size to kind of look back at it and kind of reach that conclusion, right? Um, and it's not just West Ham, right? It's Liverpool, it's Aston Villa, right? It's Wolves and Nottingham Forest,
And
where
Newcastle.
and Newcastle, right? We are just not putting chances away. And if you want to win a title, I think defense is. Um, I think we do have a defense to win the title, but if you
Yeah.
want to win the title, you have to put the ball in the back of the net. So, um, if that is actually something we want to achieve this year, then I think we have to go out and get a striker and just kind of figure out a way to do it.
Yep. No, absolutely. But also, I think in case we don't sign a striker, we have to fix like how we play at the moment. Like we have to find a way, even if we don't have a striker. And this is what at West Suburban AFC asks: like, are our problems scoring down to attacking patterns not producing the big chances we got last season, or is it down to the players not executing the chances at the rate they did last season? So I think, yeah, it's definitely a combination of many factors. But in terms of like how our attacking patterns can be better, I think we have to be more direct sometimes with how we use the ball. I think sometimes it's too many passes, and really predictable. There are times we should go long, play that ball into the box. Sometimes you play a ball into the box, the ball comes out, you win the second ball, and you have the chance to actually have a shot on target or have an opening. So I think we didn't do that enough. I think it was really predictable at times yesterday. I know we had 30 shots, and I know Arteta will say that no, we would have won the game on another day, which is probably true if the chances were taken. But still, in terms of how we can attack better and do better, I think we can go long. And I also
Mhm.
think a lot of the chances we had yesterday weren't exactly huge chances. We obviously had that chance of Gabriel Jesus, which he missed, which was like horrible. But in general, I think, yeah, the way we attack can be better, and we definitely have to find a way to do better at the end of the season. But what is your solution, Sham? Like, let's assume that what we think will happen, which is we don't really end up with that big center forward. Um, how would you fix what we're doing right now?
I think it's about getting Martinelli and Saka more central, honestly. And I think just particularly for Martinelli, it's using him better, right? I think you're right in terms of the fact that we're not going long as much. I've noticed in general we play the safe pass way too often,
Yeah,
right? And I think back to Villa, and I've kind of noticed it repeatedly throughout the season as well, where particularly on the left hand side, you'll see Martinelli making runs in. Sometimes Havertz does it as well. And it'll be Zinchenko on the ball, it'll be Rice on the ball, or Saliba on the ball, and they'll see it, and then they'll just kind of play the easy pass to like White or Odegaard or
yeah.
something. And I think we need to take more risks in
You miss
possession.
Thomas Partey a bit, I think, in this
We
regard. Like
do.
someone who just plays that vertical pass. Sometimes he's too vertical, maybe, but I think we miss that player maybe in midfield. Shaka and Partey, like these are two progressive monsters that we have out of the team at the moment.
Yeah. And that's a reason why that because I feel like people have gotten super negative about our chances of winning. Um, Actually, we'll talk about that in a second. But
Yeah,
um, yeah, I think we need to take more risks on the ball. We need to do more of those vertical passes. We actually need to do a better job of stretching teams. I think
yeah,
we let teams settle into their defensive shape too quickly, and we don't try to catch them by surprise, play like 1-2s in and around the box, get people, more central, like to the byline. We're not creating those cutbacks like we were before. We're not crashing the box like we were before, right? I think back to that graphic that was going around near the end of last season where it was us and Bayern Munich getting the most players into the box per attack on a regular basis. And we're not really doing that anymore. It feels like, it's Jesus and Havertz in the box, and then it's Saka on, to the right, Martinelli to the left, Odegaard sitting outside of it. Maybe Rice has come up a little bit. Yeah, it's just, it's not, we're playing very safe. And I think the thinking here is that if we do a bunch of high percentage chance things, then we'll get goals. But it's just resulting in kind of a low percentage chance situation, right? Like what's the percentage of Jesus winning a header over someone 8 inches taller than him? What's the percentage chance of Saka curling one into the far corner when there's 6 people in front of him when he shoots? What's the chance of Martinelli beating 3 guys and getting into the box? They're all very low.
Yeah.
And I think that stems from attacks that just time and time again take the easy pass, take the easy option, don't take any risks, and I just think we need to shake it up a little bit.
Yeah, no, spot on. Absolutely spot on. I think the worst part about not taking chances is that the opponent is still in the game. And like yesterday, West Ham obviously took the lead early on, became 1-0. Arsenal didn't take their chances. And I want to speak about this because this is now it's got into a really ridiculous point. And this is the set piece goals that we're conceding from corners. Once again, Mr. Zinchenko is the guy getting jumped. But some will say, why is Zinchenko the guy even marking Mavropanos in that situation? Like, he should not be the guy who's having to defend against like the opponent's centre back, who obviously is good in the air. And this is not the first time. We saw against Fulham, we saw against Luton, even at the back end of last season, we saw that we concede so many goals from corner kicks. And yeah, I just want to say, when is it going to end, Robbie? Like, we've been literally conceding these type of goals now for like, I think for the most part of this year, to be honest. And is it now the set piece coach's fault and he has to really look into it? How do we fix this? Because I think set pieces are so complicated to analyze, like for the average fan. Like, it's really complex. And of course, it's easy for me to sit here and say, why is Zinchenko marking this guy? There's obviously some thought process that goes on, and clearly whatever we are doing is not working in terms of set pieces. So how do we fix this? Like, is there a fix for this? Because honestly, this is costing us a lot. As good as we are offensively in these set pieces, we seem to be equally vulnerable defensively. So, what's the way out, you think?
I think for starters, put guys on defenders who are the same size as them, right? I'm
I think the
sure there
problem
is.
I think the problem though is, for example, yesterday we didn't have Havertz and we had to play Trossard. So we are already like one tall player short
Yeah,
over
yeah.
there. And sometimes I think you inevitably have to play one or two players against the tall players. So how do you like deal with that?
I mean, yeah. I wish I had a clear answer for that. Like you said, it's a really difficult thing
Really
to analyze,
complicated.
but um, I mean, it's just kind of another reason to play Kivior, to be honest,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I think Kivior at least would have been able to compete with Mavropanos for that header.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think sometimes we get a little too cute with our set piece defending, and I think it just needs to be about. I think it needs to be like man on man, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes we go a little zonal, um, and yeah, it's I don't know. To be quite honest, I think the way that you fix it is just to use your size wherever you can, right? If you have to put someone small on a player who's bigger than them, then put someone like Zinchenko who at least wins their aerial duels. So maybe that was the thinking there with
Yeah.
Zinchenko and Mavropanos. Maybe they thought Zinchenko would win his aerial duels. Although
Mm-hmm.
for me personally, put a center back on a center back or on a center forward. Right. I don't want to put the left back on a center back. It just feels like a mismatch. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you fix it.
Yeah, it's the worst thing, and it's like so predictable as well. Keeps happening at the Emirates. We even saw it in that game. We beat Bournemouth 3-2 when they scored the second goal. We saw it against Southampton last season as well. In the game we drew 3-3. That I think, or 2-2. Was it 2-2 or 3-3? I cannot remember. It was 3-3, right? Yeah, it was 3-3. I think the
Yeah.
third goal Southampton scored again was from a corner.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, honestly. And yeah, we have to fix this because we are approaching Leicester City territory the way they were defending the set pieces last
Yeah.
season. So we have to really fix up that.
I
But
do
Sham,
think
yeah,
Oh, sorry. I just want to say I do think another issue might just have to be with the fact that Ramsdale wasn't ever really good at claiming crosses, and
Hmm.
Raya, despite being advertised as having that skill, hasn't really shown it yet. Has made some
No,
mistakes.
no.
Um, so yeah, I haven't had a chance to watch back the second West Ham goal, but I do think that is an issue that we've had where we don't have a keeper who comes and claims a lot of the
Yeah,
crosses that
yeah.
maybe fall into areas where they should be doing that.
No, that's fair. That's a fair point as well. I think David Raya, to be fair to him, I think his handling of the ball is good. The problem
Yeah.
is he's not commanding. He's not like, you see the way some of the like top keepers are built. Look at Allison. Look at the Manuel Neuer, Thibaut Courtois. They're like massive. They're giants. Like, I'm not saying this guy is like extremely short, but I think for a goalkeeper, he is a bit short. And despite how good he is with his hands, as you mentioned, you can't expect, like, you made this analogy of like Gabriel Jesus not being able to jump over someone who's like way taller than him, like 6'5" or something. I think the same applies to David Raya. You're competing against the beasts of the Premier League, who are tall, physical. They're coming at you, and despite how good you are with the ball at hand, competing with them in terms of those aerial duels is not easy by any means. And I think, yeah, that could be an issue as well. But in general, yeah, no matter who the keeper is, we seem to be conceding these goals. No matter who the defenders are as well, we seem to be conceding these goals. So I think it's one for the drawing board, one for Nicolas Siowa to really look at, because it's costing us a lot, to be honest. So hopefully we can fix that. But having said that, we're now at the 1 hour point of the show. And I think we now have come to the final question, which is, where does like this leave Arsenal? Like, a lot of meltdown on the timeline, saying that, oh, the title race is done, which for me seems to be a bit ludicrous, because yeah, we're going to be a couple of points behind Liverpool. Man City will be level on points with us, but yeah, it's obviously a setback. But still, like, the title race is very much on, isn't it, Sham? Like, how do you feel about this? Does our inefficiency make you concerned regarding the title race in terms of like how it will go and proceed from here? Or do you think that no, this title race is going to go right down to the wire, and it's about which team is good in that April-May period? How do you see this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really is about who kind of kicks it into another gear in the last half or month and a half, maybe 2 months of the season. Um, Obviously, it does depend also on how you do with the first half of the season. But Liverpool have 42 points. We have 40.
Hmm.
Yes, it's a 10-point drop off from where we were last season. Um, City, I think they have a game in hand. If they win that game in hand, they'll be on the same pace as we are.
Hmm.
It's weird because I've argued with people about this already, and you'll say I think we're still in the title race, and then people will be like, no, we're not. We've only gone away to two of the top 8 teams in the league, and we have 40 points, right? And then you get to say something like, well, we're entering the January window. Also, there's a whole second half of the season to go. My point is, I'm not gonna do a solo impression, but my point is, I think whenever you try to argue with someone about this kind of thing, they just come up with all the worst case scenarios that could happen. And
Yeah.
I think people always assume what happens in the first half of the season is going to happen in the second half of the season, right? Last season, halfway through it, we were on pace for 100 points. What happened
Yep.
after that?
End up
Our
like
form,
80 points or something. Yeah.
yeah, our form collapsed in the second half of the season. So, and how are we looking at City right now? City are also going to be on pace for 80 points. Are people sitting back and saying, "Oh, they'll finish with just 80 points"? No, people are assuming that De Bruyne is going to come back and Holland's going to come back and they're going to be a super team again, right?
Hmm.
And you know what? That's pretty plausible. I think that's going to happen, right? I still have City as the favorites, but we're going to get Party back eventually. We're going to get Tomiyasu back. We're going to get Timber back. Havertz is going to be back in the team because his suspension is over. We're going to have Vieira back. Smith Rowe, I think, will hopefully contribute in some way, and I
Hopefully
think we're going to do some.
Martinelli's form as well goes
Yeah,
back. Yeah.
Martinelli's going to improve. I think Raya is going to stop throwing the ball into our net. And I think we're going to at least make one move in January. I think it'd be crazy not to make at least one signing in January right now.
Yep.
And that changes things, that changes the outlook. So I get that we have been pretty average in terms of our finishing. I get that we're seventh in XG, I think, in the league. I get that we're making some dumb errors on the ball in our own third, right? I understand all of that. I understand that we've had, I don't want to say an easy schedule, but I understand that the second half of the season is going to be a little bit more challenging, right?
Yep.
All that's fine, right? I understand all of that, but I think first of all, if you're not trying to be optimistic about it, this is the kind of scenario we were dreaming about being in 3 years ago, right? So now that we're in it, I'm gonna try to believe until it's not possible. But second, I think it's just foolish to pretend that things can't change. So I think we're very much in it. I think City is still the team to beat. I think they're going to get it together. I think if Liverpool sign an actual six next month, then I also would be concerned about them. But you know, we have Saliba and Gabriel and Rice who are playing at a high level right now. I I think we've seen Arteta start to unlock what Kai Havertz could be, right? We all know what Saka and Jesus and Martinelli are capable of. And, we do have some really effective players returning from injury over the next couple months, right? So, with all that in mind, I do think we're going to continue to challenge and we'll be right there until the end. And if not, there's a Champions League as well. And I feel pretty good about our odds of that. So,
Yep.
I'm I'm feeling okay. Like I tweeted this yesterday, or I guess this morning. Yesterday's loss isn't really one that makes me reevaluate how I feel about the team. Right? It's kind of the same thing, right? We're inefficient in both boxes,
Hmm.
and between it, we're excellent, right? And if we
Yep.
just if we work that out, which can happen, then we're one of the best teams in the league, if not the best team in the league. So we'll see.
Yep. No, could not agree more. I think personally though that we will fall short this season in the Premier League. I know we're still with City and Liverpool, but I don't know when I watch City play, like I just think that yeah, they're still in that zone now where they're like still feeling their way. And I think second half of the season they always go on that run of like 10, 15 games on the spin where they just win. And Liverpool as well, looking pretty good in my opinion. They've actually played, I think, more difficult fixtures than us, and they're already ahead. In fact, at Anfield, if you saw, there was not really much between the two sides. But I think Liverpool are more efficient in terms of how they take their chances. They have a guy called Mo Salah who's like he's just a killer. He will take the
Yeah.
chance he gets. Um, so I think Arsenal will finish third in the Premier League this season. I know it sounds a bit like pessimistic of me to say, but that's my prediction. I think we finish third, but I also think we do very well in the Champions League. I can see us going to the semis or the final, possibly even winning it. I think in the Champions League we're going to be like the dark horses this season,
Yeah.
and hopefully we can also do well in the FA Cup. Hopefully we don't win the FA Cup because it's been a while since we won a trophy. This group of players haven't really won a trophy under Arteta, so it would be good for us to get that trophy, because the last time we won was a completely different group, like Pepe's, the Aubameyang. So I think it's now for us, for this group to win and show that, yeah, they're winners. And I think winning a trophy will give this group a lot of confidence. I always think that first trophy is always a bit elusive, but once you win one, start to like breed confidence and you will win more. So yeah, I've changed my attitude though in terms of how I view the game. I'm now watching the games just for the fun of it, trying to enjoy the game rather than getting so stressed about it. Although Zinchenko's making that very hard, but still, I'm trying.
I want to read something out that just might be some good news, right? So we were talking about that Sammy Mokbel report about Palace being interested in Nketiah and us saying no. So in that time, um, Team News and Ticks, who we really should have on the show at some point, but Team News and Ticks tweeted out this was 2 weeks ago. Hopefully, there's been some movement since then. I was told pre-match yesterday, quote unquote, we just don't have the depth required. So I'm hoping we're busier in January than most expect. So,
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean,
so
it's good that the club recognized the problem.
yeah. So I don't think I don't think we should be under any illusion here that the club is sitting here thinking, "Yep, Cedric being our only remaining right back after White is fine, and Kedia being our only center forward after Jesus is fine." This group can win it. I think they understand that um, they do need to make some additions. So it's just about figuring out ways to do that, and the solutions are probably going to have to be creative, but that's what the guys who handle that get paid to do. So
Yep. Yep.
we'll see. My attitude is always to maintain belief until it's at the very least super unlikely.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, if you want to ask me point blank, I'm not sure we win. I don't think we win the title this year. I think City just figure out a way to do it again.
Mhm.
But yeah, I until that becomes blatantly clear, I'm going to continue believing.
Yep. Yep. No, let's fingers crossed. Hopefully, still 19 games to go. We're at the halfway point of the season. So yeah, we just have to win all the games from here. That's the only way.
Yep, that's the thing. Arsenal, if you just win every single game for the rest of the season, you'll win the league.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Exactly.
19 game winning streak starts now.
Let's go.
Yeah. So, you want to put a bow on it here?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Unless you have
Oh,
something else to say.
uh, no. I mean, well, I guess I will say this, right? This is probably going to be our last pod of the year,
Oh yeah.
because our
We
next game
started
is
this year.
on. Yeah. So our next game's on New Year's Eve, which probably means we're not going to chat until sometime next week. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. Um, but yeah, it's the end. Sorry, it's our last pod of 2023, which is the birth year of this little pod that we're doing here. So I guess I just want to say it's been a great first year, and I've had a lot of fun doing this, and I'm looking forward to more and more years of This Week in Arsenal, of growing the pod, of doing some more things, some new things, getting the videos out and all that stuff. So it's been a fun first year. We've got, I think, January 24th is the birthday, so we're about a month out. But yeah, it's been great doing this, man.
Yep, yep. It's been real pleasure doing it with you, Sham, getting all our thoughts out. I think like it's a therapy session, to be honest, every week to do it for an hour to speak about Arsenal. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. And we're going to do some exceptional things this year. We're only getting started. 2023 was about just putting out the content, getting into some
Yeah.
sort of rhythm. 2024 is going to be incredible stuff. So stay tuned, subscribe. And yeah, we will keep putting out the content for you guys.
Yep. Invest early, people, is what we're saying here.
That's when the
So
stocks are low. Exactly.
yeah. So with that, we'll call it for today. And as always, I'm Sham at Shamsdale. He's Sash at LT Arsenal. You can follow the pod at This Week Arsenal on Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We will respond to comments. And we are closing in on 2,000 subscribers. If you want to help us get to that goal, we'd really appreciate it. And yeah, until then, stay safe, stay sane, and we will talk to you after we defeat Fulham on New Year's Eve. Do I have that right? Is it Fulham on New Year's Eve?
Yeah, by the way, you didn't. Yeah, it is Fulham. By the way, you didn't. We didn't say that's why we lost to West Ham because we
Yeah,
didn't
we
have a.
need we need to get better about that. We're screwing the team over. But we will talk to you in 2024. So until then, take care and we'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.